Do you like mysteries? To wander through the enigmatic mist of the inexplicable? Great. I'm Merc, and here you'll find what you're looking for. Welcome to my domains. The truth dissolves into the mist.
The night settles over the forgotten town of Point Pleasant, wrapping the forests, the river, and the abandoned factories in a silence that feels heavier than darkness itself. There are places in this world where reality bends quietly, leaving gaps that most people never notice. But some places do not hide their cracks. They scream through them, and if you listen closely, the scream echoes through history like beating wings cutting the cold air, leaving you wondering whether you are witnessing a creature or a warning. Tonight we return to one of the most unsettling phenomena in modern folklore, a figure that emerged not from ancient myth, but from the shadows of the recent past, as if the unknown decided to manifest itself in a form no one could mistake. A tall humanoid shape, with crimson eyes glowing like embers suspended in the void. Wings stretching wider than the road it hovered above. People who saw it claimed it did not flap its wings, it simply rose, as if gravity itself surrendered. Mothman, a name that sounds almost innocent until you confront the accounts directly. You start recognizing patterns that do not belong to coincidence. You find reports that overlap in fear, in shock, in unexplainable detail. And as you listen to each voice describing what they saw, the question grows inside you. Are these people connected by mass hysteria, or did they witness something older than any recorded legend, something that visits humanity only when disaster approaches? Let us go back to November of 1966. When two young couples were driving near an abandoned TNT plant on the outskirts of Point Pleasant. The structure was massive, cold and forgotten, a place where echoes get trapped behind concrete walls. They reported seeing a creature standing near the old gates, a being taller than any man, with wings that appeared folded along its back and eyes glowing red, as if lit from within. When they accelerated the car, the figure lifted into the air without effort, and followed them down the road, staying just above their vehicle with a speed that no bird could match. The couples would later admit that they prayed they were hallucinating, but the creature stayed there, flying effortlessly until vanishing into the night, leaving only the sound of their panicked heartbeat. Their story was not isolated. In the following days, dozens of sightings emerged from the region, each one carrying a similar description, with variations that did not break the consistency but strengthened it. A creature with no visible head, as if the eyes were embedded directly into the chest. A shape that moved with unnatural grace, sometimes drifting like smoke, other times standing firmly in the moonlight. Witnesses described the same oppressive feeling. A sensation that someone or something was observing them from a vantage point beyond human understanding. You may wonder why so many people were able to describe the same details without the internet to spread rumors instantly. The newspapers printed the first accounts, but the most unsettling testimonies came from people who refused to have their names revealed. Individuals who claimed that speaking about the creature felt like inviting it back. What makes Mothman different from other cryptids is not merely its appearance, it is the timing. Every wave of sightings seemed to align with a future event, a tragedy that approached silently until it could no longer be stopped. Some researchers suggest the creature acts as a spectral omen, a harbinger that manifests itself when catastrophe is imminent. Skeptics claim this is only coincidence, but coincidences rarely appear in clusters around people who reported the same impossible figure. And if that was not disturbing enough, testimonies extended beyond rural areas. People saw bright lights in the sky, received threatening phone calls from voices that sounded metallic and cold, and described a growing unease that felt like an invisible tension stretching through the entire town. Those events built an atmosphere that forced even the most skeptical residents to pay attention. People felt watched, followed, or stalked by something unseen. The lines between paranoia and perception dissolved slowly. As you observe the timeline, you cannot avoid the feeling that something was preparing for an inevitable conclusion, something building toward a single moment of impact. You know that moment. The Silver Bridge collapse. A tragedy that killed dozens in seconds and marked Point Pleasant forever. But what makes the bridge relevant to Mothman is not superstition. It is the number of sightings that escalated rapidly in the weeks before the collapse. Witnesses claim to have seen the creature perched on the bridge, wings hunched like a shadow watching the river. Others described the red eyes gazing from a steel beam. And when the bridge fell, many believed the creature vanished with the tragedy it seemed to predict. But is that truly the end, or just the beginning of something that continues quietly through the years? Before you answer, ask yourself this: why did similar sightings occur in other parts of the world long after Point Pleasant faded into memory? Why do these accounts often precede disasters that cannot be predicted easily? Hold on to that thought, because the deeper you go, the more unsettling the connections become. When Point Pleasant tried to heal from the trauma of the Silver Bridge collapse, many residents expected the sightings to fade quietly into memory. Yet the accounts did not stop. They simply spread. Reports emerged in Pennsylvania, then across the Midwest, and eventually across entire continents. The creature was no longer tied to a single region. It seemed to follow a pattern of distress, appearing before moments that would later be carved into public tragedy. In 1986, a group of workers near the Chernobyl power plant claimed they saw a large winged figure perched on a crane days before the disaster. According to them, its eyes glowed with the same intense red described in Point Pleasant. Some dismissed their testimony as stress induced by the dangerous environment, but others insisted that the creature was real and that its presence was the first sign that something catastrophic was looming over the horizon. When Reactor 4 exploded, the workers who had spoken about the creature believed they had seen an omen returning to observe humanity's next failure. Years later, similar stories surfaced in Freiburg, Germany, where miners preparing for their shift were stopped by a massive winged silhouette blocking the entrance. They claimed the figure emitted a high-pitched sound that forced them to retreat. Minutes later, the mine collapsed. For those who survived, the creature was not a monster. It was a warning. These testimonies do not rely solely on fear or superstition. They reveal a pattern that seems to grow stronger with every occurrence. Wherever disaster brews silently under the surface, the red-eyed figure returns as if drawn by an invisible current. Some believe Mothman is an interdimensional observer. Others suggest it is tied to electromagnetic disturbances that precede major events. There are theories that connect it to military experiments, to atmospheric anomalies, or even to undiscovered species that react to global stress the way animals react to natural disasters. But there is another possibility, one that rarely gets mentioned because of the implications. What if Mothman is not warning humanity but studying it? What if the creature watches how humans respond to impending tragedy, not to help, but to understand the anatomy of fear? This theory implies that the creature is not a protector or a curse, but a witness, a silent archivist collecting data from the shadows, observing the instant where order fractures and lives change without control. If that idea unsettles you, consider this. The modern world is filled with cameras, satellites, and instant communication, yet sightings of winged humanoids have not disappeared. In fact, they have increased. People report similar entities near large dams, at remote mountain passes, and around urban construction sites. Some pilots claim to have seen humanoid shapes flying at altitudes impossible for any animal. While skeptics blame drones or optical illusions, the descriptions remain consistent with those from 1966, details that should not survive decades of cultural evolution. The deeper you explore, the more the sightings begin to form an unspoken map, as if charting the pulse of the planet. The pattern suggests that the creature appears where tension escalates, where something is about to break. It does not matter if the event is natural, structural, or human-made. If danger accumulates, the shadow with glowing red eyes seems to emerge silently from the folds of reality. It leads to a chilling concept. Maybe Mothman does not cause disaster. Maybe disaster calls Mothman, an entity that reacts to fear the way lightning reacts to storms. And if this is true, then the creature is neither evil nor benevolent, but a phenomenon that coexists with human fragility, appearing only when dread ripens to its fullest. If you are still skeptical, remember this. Some sightings from the 21st century appear near places that did not collapse or burn or explode. Instead, they were locations where tragedies were prevented at the last moment. This suggests the creature might not predict the event itself, but the tension surrounding it. A tension that can break unpredictably, or be resolved silently without ever reaching the headlines. In those cases, the creature vanishes without tragedy, leaving behind a question that has no comfortable answer. Why was it there? As we reach the end of this investigation, one thought lingers. If Mothman appears where the invisible pressure rises, then perhaps the sightings are not warnings from the unknown but reflections of something inside us. A mirror of our collective instability, a manifestation created by fear, stress, and the unknown forces that shape human history. Or perhaps it is exactly what witnesses claim to have seen. A physical being with wings wider than a car, eyes burning through the darkness, watching quietly from a distance. A creature that neither approaches nor attacks, only observes the fragile thread of fate as it twists unpredictably through time. When the night grows silent and the corners of your vision feel heavier than usual, you might wonder if the creature ever truly left Point Pleasant, or if it simply waits drifting invisibly between the places we try not to think about. And if tragedy truly draws its attention, then the real question is not where it has been. The real question is where it will appear next.
Did you like this mystery? And what is your theory? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed it, then like and share. I'm Merc, and I'll be waiting for you in the next mystery.